Hi, and welcome to the channel. Today we are doing another yin yoga class, and we are continuing to add to the growing yin yoga playlist that we have on this channel, which I think is a real value to have a well-rounded practice to add in. Besides your vinyasa flow, besides being very active, also there's a good value in taking time to slow down and to hold some of these poses for much longer than you would normally allow. So today's sequence is a sequence all for it's focused mainly on the kidney and the bladder meridians. Now, without getting too crazy detailed on the meridians and lines of energy, we will talk about it some as we flow through the class. But mainly just to give you a heads up today, that means we're going to work a lot into the inner thighs and the groin and also into the front of the chest and the throat. So I would recommend, of course, having your yoga mat, maybe a couple of blocks and a bolster or else a nice pillow if you have one for this sequence. We're going to get started right away, coming onto our bellies on the mats. So go ahead and extend those legs long, and we'll come into Sphinx pose. Take a moment here to get started. Make some space in the low back by separating the legs out slightly, maybe just a little bit wider than your hips. And then the elbows should be just a couple of inches in front of the rib cage so that they're not pulled too far back against the body. Give yourself some space and maybe take the forearms out at a slight diagonal. From here in your Sphinx pose, let's think about lifting the chest, maybe closing the eyes, and start to breathe and settle in your practice. Go ahead and use this beginning pose just to check in, start to settle, start to slow down. If this is the first thing you're doing today and you feel very stiff, just know that's totally fine. Yin yoga is generally practiced cold so that we can get deeper into the joints, deeper into the fascia and the ligaments, and create some real opportunity for increasing our mobility. As I said, we will work into the chest and the throat and also quite a bit into the inner thighs and groin today. The kidney meridian, the kidney associating with water, that is the element of the kidney in Chinese medicine, water being the source of life's essence. Kidneys are a supplier of this life essence. And so keeping this line of energy open, allowing the energy to move freely throughout these practices, you may find an improvement in your overall health and wellness. This meridian runs up the inside of the legs and then crosses through the bladder, up into the lungs, and up through the throat. And so you can tell by the way that that meridian travels, that of course is going to affect the poses that we do today. Now in your Sphinx, we're going to lower down onto our forearms. Let's rest the right side of our face on top of our hands. Draw that left knee up and in, so your gaze is towards the left, and you've drawn that left knee up. You're in kind of this half frog resting position. Allow that left hip to feel heavy. Relax throughout the upper body. If you're new to the channel, maybe this is the first time practicing yin yoga, don't worry. We are meant to hold these poses for several minutes, so there will be times of peace and quiet. We're going to slowly make our way out of this position as we do when exiting any of our yin poses. Slowly push the leg back. Maybe rock the hips back and forth slightly. And from here, go ahead and push the hands underneath the shoulders, and we're going to press up and come into a kneeling position. So sitting back on the heels. Go ahead and grab your blocks. You may want them. We're going to come into a half hero pose. So setting up in half hero, traditionally coming into it, you will have the glutes all the way down to the mat and then extend one leg long. We'll start with the left leg extended here for the purpose of this practice. So the right knee is bent, but the right foot is just outside of the right thigh. Now that is a very deep bend on that right knee, which could be very not as accessible for many people because knees are a joint that many of us struggle with. And if that is the case, I suggest sitting up on a block, and that will greatly reduce the amount of pressure that you have in that right knee. If it still is not something that you care for, you could also come into a seated figure four pose and just cross that left ankle over the top of, the right ankle over the top of the left knee. So whatever version suits you best, take your time to get set up. Find the version of the pose that suits you. And from here, you can stay seated up tall, or you can also start to lean back, maybe onto the forearms. So if you like, you can lower all the way down onto your mat. As we make our way into many of these poses, you may find them challenging. I encourage you to find your edge. Now that's where you are feeling what you're meant to be feeling. So we want to feel this into the thighs, into that right leg. We don't want to feel any sharpness or pain. If you do feel that, start to ease off and back out of it, or find a modification that suits you a little better today. But find that edge, and once you're there, settle in and resolve to remain still. That can be the true challenge of a yin practice, keeping our stillness. Because as we hold these for several minutes, of course your thoughts will start to wander. You may start to feel emotions bubble up. You may think I can't hold this. I can't do this. You may have experience of negativity. From there, by all means, please come back to the breath. Use your inhales and your exhales to divert that focus simply to using your breath, so that you're allowing all these sensations and this awareness to come by without any judgment. With that stillness, of course, we continue to hold the pose for several minutes. When you're ready, let's push ourselves up. If you were lean back, use your arms to help push yourself up. Lean over onto the left side so that you can extend that right leg out in front of you. Maybe give the legs a little bit of a wiggle, tapping them onto the mat. We're going to take that half hero pose on the other side so that we can even ourselves out. This time, keeping the right leg long, bend that left knee and take the left foot to the outside of the left glute. Again, a very deep shape for your knee. If you need to adjust by sitting a little bit higher or taking that seated figure 4 pose, by all means, please do. From here, let's inhale, just sitting up tall. And if you feel comfortable enough, you can start to lower back onto the forearms or all the way down onto the mat. As we did in the last pose, let's slowly start to lift ourselves up using our arms, shifting over to the right hip so you can extend that left leg long. Just to wake up the joints, again, let's just give the legs a little bit of a shake out before we move into a counter pose for that posture. When you feel ready, we're going to spin the legs around and underneath us and come into an elbow plank. Now you might think, wow, this is a challenging pose for a yin class, but we're going to counter that deep stretch onto the thighs by coming into an elbow plank and really activate the quads, activate the lower body, lifting up through the knees, drawing in through the core, and really engage those legs to counter that deep, deep stretch. And we're going to hold here for about 3 breaths. Remember, as we hold yin poses for a long amount of time, we're creating a length in the muscles. Sometimes that length can cause some immediate weakness, so by countering with a counter pose such as this, we're going to decrease the amount of time that that weakness lasts. And when you're ready, from there, we're going to lower back down onto our stomachs and return to our Sphinx pose. Taking a few breaths here in Sphinx. Again, think of drawing the chest forward and up. Crown of the head is nice and tall. And again, let's lower onto our hands, resting the left side of the face now onto the hands, and then drawing the right knee up for our half frog on this right side. Use the gentle rise and fall of the breath to allow yourself to just relax and melt into the posture. Wonderful. We'll start to push ourselves up and come into a seated position, taking our butterfly pose. So for your butterfly, I'm going to spin around to the side here. Bring the soles of the feet together. Adjust the position of the feet, whether you want them a little further away today or closer in. And we'll work more into that inner thighs and the groin and start to bend from the hips, reaching a point where we can no longer maintain the straightness of the back and just allow ourselves to fold forward and down into our butterfly pose. While you're in the process of finding your edge in every sequence, just double check to make sure that you're not pulling or forcing yourself into the pose. We have lots of time here to allow the body to relax and to naturally lower and deepen. Of course, we want to maintain our stillness in the pose, but if you find yourself or your body giving yourself the opportunity to deepen a little bit further as we continue to hold, you can make that happen and then return back to stillness. To come out of this pose, use the hands to lift the torso upright first, one step at a time. And then we'll take the legs and go ahead and close the legs using the assistance of the hands. The next pose is you have a couple of options. We're going to fold over each leg while in a straddle position. Now, since we're going to do each leg individually and then follow it up with a full straddle by folding in the middle, that means we're going to hold straddle for several minutes. And if that does not seem like something you're up for today, I would suggest taking a half butterfly. And so, for instance, we will start folding over the left leg. So if you're taking your half butterfly, go ahead and center yourself on your mat, but bend that right knee and draw the right foot in. From there, go ahead and fold over the left leg. But if you would like to try and maintain the straddle position, go ahead and open the legs up as far as is comfortable. It doesn't need to be super wide. Also, you may like to sit up onto a blanket because that lifts the hips up a little bit more and gives them a little more space to fold over. Whatever pose you have chosen, just feel it out. If you are finding it's too much, maybe ease off and then take your half butterfly. So go ahead and set up in the center of your mat, sit nice and tall. And then from here, we're going to turn the torso so that we're facing the left leg and then start to walk the hands down and fold over the left leg. You can allow the head to be heavy and allow it to just drop. Another option you can have while you're folding over in your straddle pose, if you feel like the mat is just a little too far away, you could take the blocks on either side of your leg and use that to rest your forearms on. And you might feel a little bit more supported there. But you should definitely feel a stretch along the inner thighs and also through the hamstrings. Think about keeping that right hip glued to the mat as much as possible. Of course, since our torso is shifting towards the left, it's going to naturally want to lift up and lift off. If that's the case, maybe come up slightly in the torso so that it doesn't fully reach off the mat. When you're ready, lift yourself up by using those hands. Keep the legs where they're at. If you're in straddle, if you chose to take your half butterfly, this time you'll bend your left knee in, draw that left foot to the inside of the right thigh, and then all of us will turn our torso over to face that right leg and then start to walk down. And just allow the spine to bend and curve over the top of that right leg. Again, think of the left leg as remaining nice and heavy, staying connected to the mat. The left hip is planted firmly into the earth. allow your body time to settle and to naturally find its way into the pose. No need to hold, no need to pull ourselves deeper. Again, check in with other areas of the body, like the face. Make sure that you're not tightening up through the face or the jaw. Feel the tongue to be nice and loose within the mouth and along the throat to be nice and relaxed. On your next inhale, slowly rise up. And we're going to go for our last round here in straddle pose, this time sitting up nice and tall. If you were in your half butterfly before, this time I do encourage you to open up the legs as wide as possible, or as comfortable, I should say. And then from here, sit nice and tall and start to walk the hands forward. It doesn't need to be very far. Again, you can use the blocks to bring that ground a little bit closer, and then set the forearms down. Starting here in straddle is wonderful. Again, we're going to hold for a couple of minutes. So if you feel after maybe a minute or so that you don't need the blocks and the forearms are ready to rest on the earth, that's where your body's taking you. Again, the stillness comes at our edge, and if the edge gets a little deeper as we hold the pose, by all means, settle back into it and then find that stillness. That is a juicy, juicy stretch. So again, we have been working on the inner thighs and the groin for several minutes. So take a lot of care coming up. From here, please use your arms in your hands to assist your legs in drawing them in, soles of the feet to the mat. And we're going to take some 90-90 windshield wipers so you can bring the hands just behind you, and at your own pace, start to shift the hips from left to right, and then the knees will fall from side to side, moving back into those legs. When you're ready, we're going to come into a seated position facing the top of the mat. Extend the legs out in front of you. Sit up nice and tall. And then we're just going to forward fold. Walk the hands out. Start to bend from the hips. And then allow the back to round as you just fold over the tops of our legs. This will be our closing pose for today. Let's close out in stillness, truly following the inhale and the exhale. Feel the breath traveling through the body, down the spine, all the way to the sacrum. That energy going out through the fingertips and beyond the toes. Maybe tucking the chin ever so slightly to further activate that meridian along the kidney line. And when you're ready, slowly lift up. Take an inhale once you come all the way to the top with the crown of the head nice and tall. And exhale it out. One more nice gentle inhale. And exhale it out. From here, let's lift the hands up to the sky, draw the palms together, and then pass through heart center to close our class. Thank you for joining me today on that nice juicy yin class. If you missed our summer slowdown playlist, be sure to check that out right here. And hopefully you have a wonderful and amazing day that you can take this feeling of peacefulness with you off the mat and enjoy it for the rest of the day. Take care. Make it a good one. Bye.